I bought the ring, but my girlfriend just told me she doesn't believe in marriage anymore. They say love conquers all, right? That as long as two people love each other, nothing else matters. But what happens when that's not true? When love isn't enough? I never thought I'd be asking myself that question, but here I am, living it. This is the story of how my perfect dream proposal turned into one of the most confusing moments of my life. Let me start by saying, I was all in. I wasn't just thinking about proposing, I had already bought the ring. You know, the ring. The one that took weeks of saving, months of planning, and endless overthinking. I wanted it to be perfect, a symbol of everything we'd built together and everything I thought we'd build in the future. For weeks I carried this little box around like it was my greatest secret. I had this whole proposal planned out. Candles, music, her favorite flowers. I imagined her smile, her tears of happiness when I got down on one knee. I could already hear her saying, yes. But life has a way of flipping your plans upside down. Just when I thought I was ready to take the biggest step of my life, she said something that left me completely blindsided. We were sitting on the couch one night, just talking about life, when out of nowhere, she said it. I don't believe in marriage anymore. I froze. For a second, I thought I misheard her. I even laughed a little, thinking she was joking. But she wasn't, she was serious, dead serious. And in that moment, I felt like my whole world came to a standstill. Here I was, with a ring in my pocket, plans in my head, and love in my heart, and suddenly, everything I thought I knew about our future was in question. I didn't know what to say or how to react. All I could do was sit there, staring at her, trying to process what she had just said. I mean, how do you even respond to something like that? Do you argue? Do you ask questions? Or do you just listen? That one sentence shattered the image of the future I'd been holding on to, and all I could think was, what does this mean for us? That's where it all started. My dream, her confession, and the questions that would haunt me for days. And honestly, I still don't know how we got here. You know, when I think back to how it all began, it almost feels like a scene out of a movie. We met on a random Saturday afternoon at a coffee shop. It wasn't anything dramatic, no spilled drinks or quirky one-liners. It was just me standing in line, completely oblivious, and her sitting at a table by the window, reading a book. I remember noticing her smile first. It was one of those smiles that could light up a room. And for some reason, I couldn't look away. I don't even remember how I found the courage to talk to her. I'm not exactly the smoothest guy, but something about her made me want to try. So I walked over, made a dumb comment about the weather, it wasn't even clever, and somehow, that turned into a full conversation. By the time I left, we'd exchanged numbers, and I couldn't stop smiling for the rest of the day. From there, everything just clicked. The first few months were pure magic. Every text, every call, every date felt effortless. We'd talk about anything and everything. Our favorite movies, embarrassing childhood stories, our big dreams for the future. She told me she wanted to travel the world someday, and I told her I wanted to find someone I could share my life with. It was like we were on the same wavelength, and for the first time, I felt like I'd found someone who truly got me. Over time, we built a life together, piece by piece. I'll never forget our first vacation. We went to the mountains, rented a little cabin, and spent days hiking, talking, and just enjoying each other's company. It wasn't fancy or extravagant, but it was perfect because it was us. We made so many little memories on that trip, like the time we got lost on a trail and ended up laughing so hard we couldn't breathe, or how she insisted on taking 100 photos of the sunrise, because, as she put it, you only get so many perfect mornings in life. And it wasn't just the big moments that stood out. It was the small things, too. The way she'd laugh at my bad jokes, how we'd binge-watch cheesy movies together, and all the ridiculous inside jokes we came up with over the years. Like every time one of us said penguin, it was code for, I love you. Because of some random story she told me about her favorite animal as a kid. We even talked about the future a lot. I mean, it was never anything too serious at first, just little jokes and daydreams. I remember one night we were lying on the couch, and she turned to me and said, if we ever get married, you'd better not pick some boring wedding venue. And I laughed, promising her it would be anything but boring. She had this sparkle in her eye, and I could see how much the idea excited her, even though we both knew it was just a playful conversation. There were so many moments like that, so many signs that made me think we were building toward something bigger. I really believed we were on the same page. We had dreams, plans, and all the time in the world to figure it out together. Or at least, that's what I thought. Buying the ring was probably one of the most nerve-wracking and exciting things I've ever done. I mean, how do you even pick something that's supposed to symbolize forever? I spent weeks searching, scrolling through websites, visiting jewelry stores, and second-guessing every single choice. It had to be perfect. Not too flashy because that's not her style, but not too simple either. It had to feel like her. When I finally found it, I just knew. It was this delicate, beautiful ring with a small diamond in the center. It wasn't the biggest or the most expensive ring out there, but it felt right. It felt like us. I could already picture it on her hand, and I kept thinking about how she'd light up when she saw it. That thought alone made all the stress of finding it worth it. Once I had the ring, the next step was figuring out the proposal. And let me tell you, I overthought every detail. I wanted it to be something she'd never forget. Something that would make her feel as special as she makes me feel every day. I decided on a beach. She's always loved the ocean, the sound of the waves, the way the sand feels under her feet. I figured it was the perfect backdrop for the moment I'd ask her to be my forever. I even planned the timing. It had to be during sunset, because that's her favorite time of day. I could already see it in my head. The sky painted in shades of orange and pink, the waves gently crashing, and just the two of us standing there, completely in our own little world. But planning was only half the battle. The real challenge was keeping it a secret. I couldn't act too nervous or excited, or she'd figure out something was up. I spent so many nights rehearsing what I'd say, pacing around my room, talking to myself like a total idiot. I must have rewritten my speech a dozen times, trying to find the right words to tell her how much she means to me. I imagined every detail, her reaction, the way her eyes would widen when I got down on one knee, the smile that would spread across her face when she realized what was happening. I thought I knew exactly how it would all go. Looking back now, it's almost funny. I had this perfect picture in my head, like a scene from a romantic movie. But life doesn't always go the way you plan, does it? At the time, I was so sure everything was falling into place. I had no idea how quickly it was about to fall apart. It happened on a regular evening. Nothing fancy, nothing out of the ordinary. We were just sitting on the couch, talking like we always did. I don't even remember what started the conversation. Maybe we were talking about friends getting engaged or something about the future. But at some point, I casually said something like, "When we get married someday, we should." I didn't even finish my sentence before I noticed her expression shift. She got quiet, like she was searching for the right words. And then, she said it, "I don't believe in marriage anymore." At first, I just froze. I didn't even know how to respond. I mean, this was the same person who'd joke with me about wedding plans. We'd talk about little details like what song we'd dance to or how we'd sneak good snacks into the reception. And now she's sitting there telling me marriage isn't something she believes in? I thought maybe I'd misunderstood her, so I said, "Wait, what do you mean?" And she just looked at me, serious as ever, and repeated it. "I don't think marriage is necessary for a happy relationship." I don't think I've ever felt my heart sink so fast. I couldn't tell if I was sad, confused, or just hurt. Probably all three. For a while, I didn't say anything. I just stared at her, trying to process what I'd just heard. She must have noticed how stunned I was because she started explaining. She said she'd been thinking about it a lot recently, how marriage is just a piece of paper, how it doesn't define love or commitment. She told me she didn't need a ceremony or legal document to feel secure in our relationship. She even said, "I still love you. That hasn't changed. I just don't see why we need marriage to prove that to each other." I didn't know what to say. I wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but I couldn't find the words. All I could think about was the ring hidden in my drawer, the proposal I'd been planning, the future I thought we were both dreaming of. And now, it felt like that future was slipping away right in front of me. She went on, saying something about how her views had changed. She'd been reading, reflecting, and thinking about how society puts too much pressure on marriage as the ultimate goal in a relationship. She said, "It's not that I don't want to spend my life with you. I do. I just don't think we need to get married to do that." Her words were calm, thoughtful even, but all I could hear was the sound of my plans falling apart. I wanted to ask her, "Why didn't you tell me this sooner?" Or "What does this mean for us now?" But I didn't. I just sat there, nodding, trying to understand how the person I thought I knew so well could feel so differently about something I thought we both wanted. It wasn't a fight. There was no yelling, no dramatic storming off, just this strange, heavy silence between us, like we were both trying to figure out what this meant for our relationship. And honestly, I still don't know. That conversation changed everything for me. It made me question not just our future, but everything I thought I understood about love, commitment, and what it really means to build a life with someone. After that conversation, I felt like my mind was spinning in a million directions. I couldn't stop replaying her words. I don't believe in marriage anymore. It was like they had carved themselves into my brain, leaving me questioning everything. Was this always how she felt? Had I missed something along the way? I started thinking back over our entire relationship, looking for signs I might have overlooked. I wondered if there were moments when she hinted at this change, little things she said or did that should have clued me in. Did I just assume we were on the same page because it's what I wanted to believe? I kept asking myself, how did I not see this coming? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized there weren't any obvious signs. At least, not that I noticed at the time. We had talked about the future before, hadn't we? We even joked about wedding plans. I couldn't help but wonder, was she joking because she didn't take it seriously? Or did something in her heart really shift recently? Then came the hardest part, the part where I had to face my own feelings about all of this. What did marriage mean to me, really? Was it just a symbol, like she said, or was it something deeper? I thought about how I'd grown up believing marriage was this ultimate expression of love and commitment. It wasn't just about tradition or society's expectations. It was about promising someone forever in front of the world. And for me, that promise mattered. It wasn't about the ring or the ceremony. It was about standing there with her and saying, "You're my person. No matter what, we're in this together." It wasn't something I could take lightly, and I realized it was something I had always dreamed about sharing with her. But now, I had to ask myself a question I never thought I'd face. Could I imagine a life without marriage? Could I be happy with her, knowing that the picture I'd been holding on to might never happen? I couldn't imagine a life without her. That much was clear. She's my best friend, my partner, the person I want to wake up next to every day. But what if not getting married left this hole in my heart? Could I live with that? It was like I was stuck between two impossible choices. On one hand, I couldn't imagine walking away from her. On the other, I couldn't shake the feeling that giving up on marriage might mean giving up on a part of myself. The weight of it was crushing, and no matter how much I turned it over in my head, I couldn't find an easy answer. All I knew was that the person I loved, the person I thought I knew so well, had just turned my world upside down. And now, I had to figure out what that meant for both of us. I couldn't hold it in any longer. The questions, the confusion, it was all too much to keep bottled up. I needed answers. So a few days later, I sat her down and told her we needed to talk. I started by being honest. I said, "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about not believing in marriage anymore, and I need to understand, what does this mean for us? Because, for me, marriage has always been part of the dream." I told her about how, for as long as I could remember, I'd pictured this moment, finding the person I wanted to spend forever with, standing in front of our family and friends, promising to love and support each other no matter what. I explained that, to me, marriage wasn't just a tradition or a piece of paper. It was a statement, a way of saying to the world and to each other, "We're in this together." I told her about the ring I'd picked out, the proposal I'd been planning. I didn't want her to feel guilty, but I couldn't pretend it didn't hurt to have this dream flipped upside down. And then I asked the question that had been haunting me since that night. If you don't believe in marriage, what does our future look like? She listened quietly, letting me pour my heart out, and when I was done, she took a deep breath. Her voice was soft but steady as she said, "I love you. That hasn't changed, and it never will. But I've been questioning what marriage really means to me." She explained that she still wanted a life with me, a future full of love, adventures, and shared dreams. But she wasn't sure marriage was the right way to define that future anymore. She said, "It's not about you or us. It's about the idea of marriage itself. I've been asking myself if it's something I truly believe in, or if it's just what society says we're supposed to do." She went on, telling me how her perspective had shifted over the past few years. She said she'd started to see marriage as more of a societal expectation than a necessity. For her, love wasn't about a ceremony or a legal contract. It was about the connection we shared, the life we were building together every day. "But," she said, and her voice softened even more, "I know this is something you've always wanted, something that means a lot to you. And that's why I'm scared. I don't want to take that away from you." Her words hit me hard. I could see how much she cared about me, how much she didn't want to hurt me. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore the weight of what she was saying. It felt like we were standing at a crossroads, and I didn't know which direction we'd choose, or if we'd even be able to walk down the same path together. After that conversation, I sat alone for hours, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it all. I couldn't stop thinking about everything we'd been through together, the good, the bad, all the moments that made us who we were as a couple. She was the love of my life, that much was clear. But now I was being forced to ask myself, was love enough? I thought about compromise, how relationships are built on give and take. But this wasn't something small, like where to live or what movie to watch. This was marriage. It wasn't just a preference, it was a core part of how I saw my future. I'd always dreamed of it, not just for the ceremony, but for the promise, the partnership, the permanence. Could I give that up? At the same time, I thought about her. How she'd always been honest, how she'd never pretended to be anyone but herself. She wasn't saying she didn't love me. In fact, she'd made it clear how much she did. She just saw the future differently now. And as much as it hurt, I couldn't blame her for being true to what she believed. But that left me in a tough spot. Could I imagine spending my life with her without the commitment of marriage? Could I redefine what a future together looked like? Or would this difference between us grow into something we couldn't overcome? The truth is, there wasn't an easy answer. If I stayed, would I always feel like I'd sacrificed too much? If I walked away, would I spend the rest of my life regretting it? I made my decision that day. I don't know if it was the right one. Maybe I won't know for a long time. But what I do know is that sometimes love asks us to make choices we never saw coming. Choices that don't have clear answers. And as much as I wish I could tie this story up with a perfect ending, life isn't like that. Sometimes, all we can do is follow our hearts and hope that, in the end, we made the choice we can live with. In the days that followed, I found myself thinking about love in a way I never had before. I always thought love was about shared dreams, about two people wanting the same things, walking the same path. But now, I'm starting to see it differently. Maybe love isn't about everything lining up perfectly. Maybe it's about how you handle it when things don't. I've realized that love and commitment can take so many forms. It's not always wrapped up in a ring or a ceremony. Sometimes, it's in the little things. Being there for each other, building a life together, even when the road looks different than you imagined. But I'd be lying if I said it's easy. When your dreams and your heart collide, it forces you to ask some hard questions. It makes you face yourself in a way you never expected. What really matters? What can you compromise on, and what's too important to let go of? I still don't have all the answers. I'm not sure I ever will. But one thing I know for certain is this. Life throws us challenges, and sometimes they're the very moments that define us. They make us stronger, or they break us. And it's up to us to decide which one it's going to be. So now, I'll ask you. If you were in my shoes, what would you do? Would you hold on to the person you love, even if it means letting go of something you've always dreamed about? Or would you walk away, hoping to find someone who shares the same vision of the future? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your stories, your advice. And if this story resonated with you, please give it a like, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this one. Thanks for listening, and for being part of this journey with me.